And we are back for episode number 104 of Raise the Banner podcast. It is Super Bowl week. We are just still kind of living in that days of it's kind of shocking to be where we are right now. But Patriots are heading here in Santa Clara. I thought you were going to be in Santa Clara, Ben. You told me
I
you're
I
going to
got
be
a
in
red eye
Boston.
last night. I had to come back to work.
Oh yeah. But Super Bowl week, they are not hosting, but they're up against the Seattle Seahawks this Sunday for Super Bowl. Oh boy, what number are we at? What number is this?
60.
50.
I know you just turned 30, but you're not old enough to be forgetful.
I don't pay attention to the number of what number Super Bowl, but anyway, Super Bowl 60, the New England Patriots, Seattle Seahawks. I know we dived into a lot of this last week, but we could kind of go around again and add in a few things. Uh, I know you're a little bit more optimistic than you were last week. So where are you overall right now, and how you feeling?
Uh, so I still have that sense of just overall calmness, which is very rare for me when it comes to Patriots games and how I feel. I think that the nerves will kick in, maybe more so than they have, but yeah, I mean, it's the Super Bowl. Obviously, fans, players, are going to be nervous. Obviously, I, I feel like no matter what happens on Sunday, you know, this has been a successful season. Nobody saw this coming. I know we talked last week. Um, we kind of agreed that in a perfect world, you were looking at like a 10 or an 11 win team. Um, maybe they win a wild card game and you kind of they take the strides you like to see in a second year in a quarterback's progression. Um, and that we'll see what 2026 brings. But obviously nobody envisioned this. Maybe outside of the Patriots locker room, you know, NFL teams tend to carry a pretty high standard of what they want to do in a season. So, um, I'm calm, cool, and collected, which will be not the case on Sunday after kickoff. I'll be a basket of emotions. Um, I think the Patriots they'll gain 1 yard on the opening kickoff, and I'll probably text you and be like, "Well, turn the TV off. Game's fucking over. They suck." But I think
I've gotten that
you know,
text in multiple times, by the way.
yeah, short of being blown out. I yes, I would be disappointed if they don't win, but it'd be hard for me to feel satisfied. Hard for me to not feel satisfied. Again, short of a blowout. But yeah, feeling good. Like I said, calm. I have I'm a 5.1 out of 10 on the confidence scale. Um, and we've got, let's see, what time is it now? It's 4:30 ish. So we got a little more than 4 days before the game. So, feeling good, all things considered.
Yeah, I'm basically kind of just waiting for that tide to turn for you. And I think it's going to be tomorrow evening where you're just going to start to negatively feel and you're going to get more and more worried and it's going to turn into the opposite for you. But nevertheless, no, I'm feeling I've kind of felt like the same way for the last 5 to 6, 7 days now. And right away after the game, knowing we face Seattle, I was like, this is going to be like really tough. Um, and really, for the last week or so, though, I have been feeling pretty confident, just in the sense that, I think the Patriots have the advantage at quarterback, and I think they have the advantage at head coach. Um, Neither of them by like huge margins right now. And that's I will take Drake May over Sam Darnold 10 out of 10 times, but like in terms of one game, yeah, I mean Darnold can come out and play a really good game. Like this, I mean Nick Foles technically kind of arguably outplayed Tom Brady in one game, and that game still Tom Brady threw up for a record passing yards.
Right.
And so, I feel confident. I'm probably more at like a 5.5 out of 10. If I had to really kind of pick a confidence level. I think that their biggest path to victory has to be controlling the line of scrimmage offensively. If they're getting consistent pressure on May, I think it's going to be really tough for them to put up points. But if they're able to, this isn't even just in the pass defense, pass blocking. They have to, create momentum and move the line of scrimmage in the run game as well. We know that they have a good little line. They got pretty good edge rushers. They have a really good interior defensive line. Byron Murphy is one of the best run stuffers in the league. So if they can establish themselves and hold up, they don't even have to go out there necessarily win the line of scrimmage. They just can't lose that battle. If they win that, if they at least kind of come out washed, I think they're in a pretty good spot and they're pretty good chances, because I do expect May to come out and play a notably better game, at least numbers wise, of what we've seen. Obviously cold, wind, snow, all that what he's been playing up against in the last few weeks, a few games. That won't be an excuse. I think the first quarter of the game is going to be pretty slow, as there's kind of like a feeling out process. We know, at least the Patriots' history, not that it matters whatsoever, but boy, did they not like scoring points in the first quarters of games.
Three total in Brady's 9 rules. 3 total points in Brady's 9
which is just asinine. Which that has no connection really. I mean, I guess Josh McDaniels is here, so but it doesn't have any connection, I don't think. With that said, there's generally nerves, right, on both sides that they're kind of shaken out in the first few drives. On top of that, we've seen May kind of be a little, what kind of looks a little bit nervous in the beginning of games, and then he seems to settle in. So I'm expecting a little bit of a slow start. I'd have to see the over/under in the first quarter, but I would be very tempted to take that, assuming it's a relatively normal over/under. But I'm feeling, like you said, I'm feeling relatively calm, and I don't know if it's like you said, like you're playing with kind of house money in terms.
Are you asking for the over/under in total points or just the Patriots?
Total points.
7.5.
Ooh, that's pretty low for a 45.5 total.
Yeah,
that's very low. Okay, we
can dive into it if you want to. I think 45.5 is too high of a number.
I do think. I think that's going to be. I think it's a decent, reasonable line. I do think it's slightly high.
With these defenses, 45.5 feels high. Not much, but a little high.
Yeah, I just would have expected something closer to 9.5. Given that it's 45.5, you would think that is what, 11.5 per quarter. I would have expected closer to 9.5.
Just like you said, you kind of expect a slower start, which that number would indicate that Vegas expects it to be a pretty slow start too.
Yeah, 7.5 is very low. We're talking, obviously, the tough thing is a touchdown in a field goal. You still need a touchdown in a field goal generally, whether it's 7.5 or 9.5. More often than not. Yeah. But in the 7.5, in theory, 3 field goals get you there too.
Correct.
Something like that. Or an extra point, you miss an extra point or something like that. But no, like I said, I'm expecting a little bit of a slow start, as there's kind of a feeling out process. With that said, I do think that it's vital for the Patriots not to fall behind. If they're a team that, they've been playing well in the second half and they've been finding their groove. So if they did fall behind, say 13-3, 10-3, 14-7, something like that, I don't think it's game over. But Seattle's got a really good defense. They have a more than capable offense. and you just really do not want to be playing from behind in a Super Bowl.
No.
You're just playing with house money at that point, and you're just asking for, this isn't Tom Brady. Like that's part of it too. Like it's not like the Patriots of the past where it's like, the Patriots and Tom Brady would be down 10 points with 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and you're like, yeah, I still feel solid about our chances somehow. This isn't really can't be that. So I'm really kind of pushing on they got to start and they can't fall behind.
Yeah, and something just to add to that too. I just jumped onto Chat GPT. 38 of the 59 Super Bowls, the team that scores first won the game. So I think it's important to, if you can score early and play from ahead, obviously that's a recipe to win pretty much any game. But the numbers would show, I don't know what the math is, 38 divided by 59, but you're talking about roughly 2/3 ish of the time that the team that scores first wins. So just to, add another layer of playing from ahead, if you can score early and play from ahead, then, I think tying that into you bringing up how you think that, the Patriots have a slight edge at the head coaching spot. I talked about this in my game preview that I sent you. I don't know how much of I think in large part, I think it'll be a non-factor. But I think, if there's an opportunity for, either team to take advantage of a situation where somebody's been there before, the Patriots certainly would have that edge. They have more guys with Super Bowl experience than the Seahawks do. Obviously, Kupp won a ring with the Rams 4 years ago. And then for what it's worth, I think it's basically a nothing burger, but Sam Darnold did play in Super Bowl 58 as the backup to Brock Purdy the year that the second 49ers Chiefs Super Bowl. But, from a coaching standpoint, the only coach that really has any experience of any kind is Josh McDaniels. We talked about this before coming on, that this is his 10th Super Bowl as a coach in some capacity, dating back to the 2001 Patriots. He was the coordinator for, I think, 6 of the 9. I think before that he was in lesser roles. But yeah, I think I think that matters, in key situations, being able to understand, if guys are panicking, to not panic, or if guys need to, they need to kick them in the ass and say, hey guys, like, we got to do X, Y, and Z now. I think that there's that, but I think that, being able to understand situations, having been there before, and again, being able to understand how to react to either playing from ahead or playing from behind, might be a little bit of an X factor for the Pats.
Yeah, I mean, McDaniels, I would say, past Super Bowl experience isn't something, how I feel like in terms of your history and like that. Like, it's not something that's huge for me, but at the same time, it could be a benefit that McDaniels isn't going to be going into this game with like nerves or being worried, being scared for certain calls and stuff like that. And so, he definitely has the experience, which definitely helps. And this goes back to just kind of the Super Bowl nerves. I expect May to probably have a little bit, but at the same time, I expect Darnold to probably have a little bit. What's going to be really key.
Just to add to that, like, I think McDaniels having the experience, I think is important, specifically like making sure that May stays in his lane as much as possible. Like, he's going to have nerves, he's 23, first full year. Like, I mean, the story, right? He's going to come out with nerves. He's going to need to have a calming voice. And it'll be nice that, McDaniels can hopefully be that for him. Cause again, I know he's not Tom Brady, but he's talked to Tom Brady during some dark times in a Super Bowl, and he's been there on the other side. How to take advantage of situations to put a game away. So that'll be nice to have. So sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's going to come down to, I think, in the first few drives, and we talk about, McDaniels, the experience. It'll be interesting to see, how much they want to protect May in the first couple drives to get him easy if they sense that he is a little bit nervous and a little bit antsy in the pocket and stuff like that. That is one thing I could see them doing, which, you don't want mistakes early in the game, but at the same time, obviously, it would be really nice if they can go and put up points early. But it will be crucial, and I think it could be almost a game-deciding situations on both sides, is that you don't make mistakes in the first drive or two. You can't, if May comes out and throws a pick in the first drive or the second drive in their own territory and just walks away and gives Seattle, 7 points, whatever, or vice versa, Darnold makes a big mistake, that can really kind of set the tone for a game. And, we don't see a ton of blowouts in football, especially in the Super Bowl. But, you put yourself in a hole like that with a mistake. Darnold or May comes out and makes a big mistake offensively in the first drive or two. That's going to sit with you, right? Like, that's going to sit with you with a player that doesn't have that experience in the Super Bowl. Brady came out and threw a interception on his first drive against the Rams in the second Rams Super Bowl.
First throw of the game.
Yeah, he's not even going to be like thinking really twice about it. He's going to come out. It doesn't really it's not going to really phase him.
Yeah.
Vice versa, like compared to you play a situation where it's May, 23 years old, or even Darnold, who this is his first year of really coming back into relevance as a legitimate quarterback. I can't say back into relevance because he was never good until like the last year and a half. But
right.
Like if he comes out and makes an early mistake, it's going to sit with these guys. So that's another reason I think you'll see some really conservative play calling early in the game. That being said, you could have it takes one play. Like it takes one play to make a big play and flip the field. I mean, we saw that with Stidham last week.
Yeah,
they had essentially one good play offensively, and it put them up and it gave them a 7-0 lead. So Ben was sitting there messaging me saying the game's over after it, but that's going to be
really, it's over.
Really,
I said I had a really bad feeling this game.
All right, it's relatively similar, but offensively, stopping Darnold, defensively stopping Darnold. Where have you seen and what have you read that you think is going to be like the absolute keys for the Patriots defense?
So I'll kind of parlay this into kind of my overall, I guess, big picture game plan. Like if I was going to scheme the defense, again, big picture stuff, not particulars. There's three key things that I think are important. Two of them are a little kind of go hand in hand. And so I'll start with the interior of the defensive line for the Patriots. So you've got Tonga, Williams, and Barmore on the line. And we all know that Barmore and Williams are two of the best interior pass rush players in the NFL. I forget where they finished specifically, but they were 2 and 3, I think, in the NFL in terms of pass rush win rate amongst interior defensive linemen. And so I think there's two things. One, the three of them need to collectively clog the middle and keep Kenneth Walker from, having his not even necessarily having his way with the defense, but finding early success where they have holes and they can run the ball on the Patriots defense. And that kind of goes into the second point, where if you can keep Kenneth Walker from having a game and force Sam Darnold to do it with his arm, I think that you have to take advantage of the fact that the weakness of the Seahawks offense, and really the team as a whole, I think the biggest weakness is their center and their right guard, specifically the right guard. He's arguably the worst pass blocking right guard in the NFL. I think you ranked 77th or 78th out of 81 qualifying tackles. Qualifying guards. And that's all guards, left or right. So for all we know, the other three guys are left guards, and he legitimately is the worst right guard in the entire NFL. I think his PFF grade on pass block was a 40.8, which is putrid for anybody who doesn't follow PFF. That's putrid. So you have to take advantage of that, and you have to get pressure up the middle on Darnold. He is not a running threat. I think he ran the ball 35 times for like 96 yards this year. So he runs when he absolutely needs to, but he is not a threat to beat you with his legs. He might need to scramble and move around a lot, but that's not a strength of his. And that's where you have to force him to throw the ball before he wants to, and hopefully cause some turnovers. On the back end of that, I don't know the best way to go about doing this, but I think you have to come up with a scheme that locks down JSN as best you can and force the other players on the Seahawks offense to beat you. The offense runs through JSN. He led the NFL in receiving yards, just shy of 1,800. He's probably going to win Offensive Player of the Year. And if he can have his way, then the Patriots defense might be in for a long day if JSN can find holes and run with the ball after the catch and make big plays. But if you can shut him down, there really isn't anybody else in the passing game on the Seahawks offense that is like a scary type of player. Their number 2 wide receiver is Cooper Kupp, who good but aging. I was looking at his numbers earlier. He had like 47 catches for 593 yards and like 2 touchdowns this year, which is, for a number 2 wide receiver, those aren't great numbers. And he, for all intents and purposes, played a full season. He sat week 17 in the clinching game to give them home field advantage. So in 16 games, he had less than 600 yards and only found the end zone twice. So I think, I don't know if you want to put Christian Gonzalez on JSN and just say, look, we can help you out with safety. We'll give you some safety help over the top, but basically, like, he's your responsibility. Like, wherever he goes, you go and stay on his ass, stay in his back pocket, and understand that he's going to make some plays. You're going to make some plays, but like, just don't get beat. Don't give up the big play. They use him all over the field. They use him out of the backfield. They use him in motion. He plays inside. He plays outside. I don't think that he will move a ton inside. He predominantly plays outside, but he will be out of the backfield and in motion a decent amount. So if you can lock down JSN, understand that he's probably going to make some plays. He's gonna catch the ball. He's going to get some yards. He might find the end zone. But if you can keep him to 50, 60, even 70 yards receiving, I think that's a win. But again, I don't know how they're going to scheme it, if it's Gonzalez with safety help or if it's Carlton Davis with safety help. And then you basically say, Christian Gonzalez, go take Cooper Kupp out of the game because Carlton Davis and Hawkins Woodson can cover JSN. The Patriots were notorious for doing that. But they more or less, I feel like they haven't had this legitimate number 1 corner for quite some time. They even go back to Darrelle Revis 11 years ago was the last time they had a legitimate outside shutdown corner. They had Gilmore for a handful of years, so I guess you can't overlook Gilmore. But in the years where they didn't have a true number 1, they would put arguably their best corner on their number 2 guy, and then the number 2 corner and safety help would take the number 1 wide receiver because they didn't have somebody who could shut down a number 1. So I don't know what the scheme's going to look like, but those are the 3 keys, I think, on defense. If you can force the Seahawks to be not completely one-dimensional, but more one-dimensional than they are multi-dimensional, like, that's where it starts for me. If we got to get pressure on Sam Darnold. If we can't force him off a spot and he can just sit there, he is good enough. He will pick you apart. He's not a guy that, it's not like you're looking at Mahomes or Allen or Brady in his prime on the other side of the line of scrimmage. But, like any quarterback, if you let him sit there and dissect a defense, he will find guys and pick you apart and move the ball. So those are kind of my three big keys. I'm not a defensive coordinator. I'm just a insane, crazy fan who yells and screams from his couch. But, so I've seen enough football that I feel like, that's kind of what I would do. Again, I don't know how they're going to scheme it up. They got to get creative on the line with stunts and sneaky pressure from places where Sam Darnold's not expecting it. Because I think especially if you can rattle him early and put pressure and force him off his spot, I think if you can rattle him early, I'm not to say that he can't dig himself out of a hole like that, but I think the Patriots are going to be in a great spot if you can rattle and get to him early in this game.
Yeah, this is obviously, it's tough to say any one specific thing is like the key to the game and all that, but their overall approach defensively is going to be very, very interesting to see. We talked about this, I think off the air at one point, but Darnold is he's got a really weird split where he is good against the blitz, but bad when he's pressured, which doesn't seem like it necessarily correlates, right? Obviously, you generally get pressured when you get blitzed. What that basically kind of says is if they're not getting home, he's going to pick you apart.
Right. Because if you're blitzing, you typically have man coverage. So if you don't get to him quick enough, he can find the guy, is I think what you're saying, right?
Yeah. And, you kind of expect a quarterback to do that. But, I mean, he is one of the best in the league this year against the blitz. That being said, when he has been pressured, he is one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. So
I believe
it'll be interesting to see kind of how they approach it.
I was going to say, I think he ranked third worst in the NFL I forget what stat it was, but he was basically a bottom 3 quarterback against the blitz. I'm sorry, under pressure.
No, against pressure. Yeah. And so I it'll be very interesting to see how they approach it all, but the biggest thing, as you kind of said, is how are they going to approach things defensively? And you could go and you could kind of play a zone against a team like this to kind of take the top off, stop, don't let the big play to JSN, those type of things. You could play man-to-man and you could put Gonzalez on there and just say, you know what, Gonzalez, we trust you to win this matchup overall, and we're going to shut everything else down. Or, like you kind of mentioned, we're going to maybe put Gonzo somewhere else and we're going to double JSN everywhere else, which, isn't the worst idea. I think if you put Marcus Jones on JSN with help over the top, I think that's a decent matchup. My only issue with that is, like, where do you then put Gonzalez?
I don't love the matchup with Marcus Jones. I think Marcus Jones gives up too much of a size advantage to JSN for me to feel like, yes, Marcus Jones is a second team all.
Yeah, well, that's why I think you need more of a top.
Right. I think that's why, like, I personally would go with Gonzalez, only because the thing that worries me with Carlton Davis is I understand that in terms of, what is it, like completion percentage or quarterback rating, there's some statistic where he and Christian Gonzalez rank like 1 and 2 in the NFL in terms of like lowest effectiveness of the quarterback when they target guys that they cover. The one thing is that Carlton Davis has been susceptible to all year. It feels like once, twice a game, maybe 3 times a game, he's getting flagged for pass interference because he does play aggressive with his hands. I don't know much about this officiating crew. They tend to let players play in these games. I guess Sean Smith tends to be a guy who, his directive with his staff is they tend to call a lot of like automatic first down type calls, which would be defensive holding, illegal contact, PI. So I don't love Davis on JSN because he is susceptible to being a little too aggressive with his hands and giving up big plays defensively in terms of like a penalty against him. But yeah, that's why I'll be curious to see. I'd like it to be Gonzo and have him just be like, just go to town. And then, cause I don't know how often they're going to be going deep with Cooper Kupp on a guy like Carlton Davis. to a point where like a defensive penalty against Davis would be massively bad for us.
Yeah, again, the matchups for me, it's like I kind of feel like you're wasting Gonzalez if you don't put him on JSN. Cup wise, I think it'll be interesting to see how they put, because Marcus Jones has the speed, right? He could play most speed guys, but do you put him on a guy like Shaheed who's got that more deep ball, or do you put Davis on a guy like that? And if you do that, you kind of a little bit worry that Shaheed can take the top off of Carlton Davis, which then you would put Marcus Jones on a guy like Cooper Kupp, which I think a guy like Marcus Jones can kind of shut down a guy like Kupp at these days.
Yeah, and so and I think that's another piece to this defensive puzzle for me is when Rashid Shaheed is on the field, right? And I'm not talking kickoff and punt returns. Does he do both? I know he returns kicks. I don't know if he returns punts. But
I believe so.
When he's on the field, right? So Shaheed is probably, if I had to guess, at any given time, he'd be the fastest guy in the field. So anytime he's on the field, I think you have to account for it. He's more or less a one-trick pony. He's going to be a guy that he's just going to want to go by you. And then Sam Darnold just throws it out there and lets Shaheed go get it. In a way that that the Chiefs would do with Tyreek, although Tyreek could run all over the field. Shaheed is just a burner. I don't think he runs a super complex route tree. Not to say that he's not good, but he only averaged 7 yards receiving a game this year. So he's not, if he's not beating you deep and taking the cover off the defense, he doesn't do much for them in the passing game. They might have some gadget plays for him. I don't have his stats in front of me, so I don't know how often they ran like jet sweeps to get the ball in his hands and give him some momentum. But that's kind of a sneaky thing for Seattle, a sneaky weapon to use, and the Patriots definitely have to account for it. He's not overly big. I think Marcus Jones, he gives up a little bit of height, but I think he's certainly fast enough he could keep up with him. Couldn't honestly tell you how good Sam Darnold is at throwing a deep ball, but that's kind of a sneaky thing, and just making sure that you don't let Shaheed, you don't let him behind the defense running around back there for a deep ball, big play.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I think the best bet is you do just kind of got to go straight up best player on best player. Gonzalez on JSN, and it help give Gonzalez that help. Don't treat him like don't put him on like a Gonzalez Island type of situation and just say, hey, win your guy one-on-one. Give him that help especially over the top, because you don't necessarily fear the other weapons for this team. Their tight ends, AJ Barner, in Arroyo, they're two solid options. I think Arroyo's out now, but AJ Barner is still pretty good. They'll certainly have to account for him. But in terms of the overall approach, kind of going back to the beginning there, it's if they can get pressure without blitzing, which is a big if.
Yes.
And that I think that accounts big time of if Barmore and Milton can take advantage of the right guard there. But if they can create pressure without blitzing a ton, they'll have a very good chance to kind of limit this offense. If they can't create any pressure without blitzing, you kind of put yourself in a situation where you not have to get lucky, but you're playing with fire in terms of how you have to approach things. I like their chances. I like their chances to create some pressure. I think that Barmore and Milton Williams can both have good games. But at the same time, if they are able to really kind of shut them two out, I don't know how much I trust a guy like, Chaseon's having a good playoff series, but how much you trust him to kind of be that savior on the defensive line in terms of creating pressure.
Yeah, same with Harold Landry, who's been our best pass rusher all year overall, but he's got a knee problem, and I expect him to suit up and go, but I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and say that I can count on him for 40 to 50 snaps on defense. Like, I don't know if we can rely on that. I mean, who knows? We'll see. I don't know how much more, we have here, but the Patriots injury report will probably come out. I'm going to guess after we're done. They practice at 5:30 Eastern time, 2:30 out West. We'll get some initial reports about what guys are out there for the media portion of practice. But we'll see what those guys are able to put together for what
I mean, the one optimistic viewpoint of it, and I wouldn't even say this is just optimistic, it's seeing what they've done recently, is they went into Denver and won the line of scrimmage against what was seen as the best O-line in football. Yes. And I would say they kind of won it pretty convincingly. Now you could talk about Stidham held the ball a little bit longer than maybe the average QB should have or whatever. And part of it is the secondary covered pretty well, and they have all secondary. I mean, all playoffs. But just as a whole, you could say that the Patriots defense is playing as good as they have all year long. So
I would agree.
We're talking about, like, can they do this? Can they do? They're playing their best football, which going into the Super Bowl, yeah, they got 2 weeks off, so maybe momentum is a little bit off, but like the defense as a whole is playing their best football. On the other side of things, obviously the offense has been a little bit shaky. So you look at it and just say, if the Patriots offense can get back on track, I really like their chances overall. Like, that's really kind of what it comes down to. I don't see a scenario, barring like big turnover by May or big fumble by the receivers or Stevenson, whatever. I don't see where Seattle comes up and just drops like 30 on us, like just the offense scoring. I just don't really see that as being realistic. I think the Patriots defense will really make them fight for it, earn their points. And so if the Patriots offense with Drake May can really kind of find their groove again, I think that they have that advantage in the sense of, I think they have a really good defense, and we know that they can be a really good offense. Seattle's got a good defense and a pretty good offense. It's how much do you trust? And I think this is kind of what it comes down to. Seattle's defense, I mean, they were fine throughout the playoffs, but like the Rams got some good playmakers, but the Rams put up some points on them. They put up, what was it, 24? 27? Yeah, 27 on Seattle. So if the Patriots defense can continue to play how they are, I just don't see Seattle putting up more than 23, 24 points max. Now, the big question is, can the Patriots outdo that? That's obviously an entire. You there?
Yep.
Hello?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay, there we go. A little bit of technical difficulties there. But yeah, I mean, and that's where I feel most confident going into this game. And that's why I'm at that like 55% is I expect the Patriots defense to play well. And I haven't felt like that really up until, really this game. Kind of going into the Houston game, you're like, all right, they played really well against the LA. Can they match it? Then they matched it. Going into the Denver game, you expected them, I guess, to play well, but it was kind of due to this Stidham instead of Nix. But I expect the Patriots defense to play well. They're playing at their best football all year. They're healthy. Spillane should be back. Landry should be back. It really comes down to how much do you believe Drake May will play, I think, at least solid football. Obviously, with your prediction, you're kind of seemingly telling me that you do think he can do that. But, where's your confidence level on Drake May specifically?
I'm not sure. I mean, I guess I'll come at it, from a perspective of, I don't think he'll be as good in this game as you saw for the entirety of the regular season. But he's not going to be as bad as you've seen in the playoffs. I think, if I had to, make a pick, I think you could expect something similar to what he did against the Texans. I think is a fair barometer. I don't expect him to complete 70% of his passes for 250, 260 yards. Like I would love it if he does. Even against this defense, which I think it's very Houston-like. They play a ton of zone. They swarm to the ball. They don't have nearly the edge pass, the pass rushing edge guys that Houston does. That's not their calling card. So, looking at how they play defense, I do like the offensive line to be, above average in this game. The best pass rushers that the Seahawks offer play on the right side of the Patriots offensive line. Their right defensive end, who would be playing over Will Campbell, is not much of an edge rusher. So, they have, I don't know what his first name is, Nwosu, their linebacker, along with DeMarcus Lawrence, and I think it's Leonard Williams, all had 7 sacks this year. I just don't know what side of the ball Nwosu plays on. He's the strong side linebacker, but I don't know where where he lines up or if he moves around. So again, I'm not sure if strong side is over the left tackle versus the right tackle. So it's confidence might not be the right word in terms of what I would use to describe May. We know that he plays well in good weather conditions. Obviously, being from North Carolina, probably didn't see a ton of bad weather games in college. So, I've been keeping an eye on the weather report. It's supposed to be like 67, 68 at kickoff, and then probably, 58, 60 degrees come the end of the game after the sun goes down. There's really no threat of rain. The wind shouldn't be much of a factor. So I expect him to be closer to what we saw in the regular season. I'm not sure I'm confident that he'll be the 70% completion percentage guy that's going to drop 250 on you. Could I see something like 63, 64, 65% with, 225? That's probably where I would be. I'm more confident than not that he'll play better than he has. I don't think he's going to be as bad as you've seen in the playoffs, but I don't think he'll be as good as his regular season peak either.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to ever predict a player's going to come out and just ball out. It happens. We see it occasionally in Super Bowl games. The biggest thing what I expect from him, I expect him to play some solid ball, right? Obviously, you got to limit the turnovers. If he goes out and has 2 or 3 turnovers, the Patriots are probably losing. Unless, I guess, the Patriots defense continues their trend of just overwhelming Seattle offense. But again, it's tough to kind of expect that to happen.
Right.
But if May can come out, protect the football, if they go into half tied or, even down maybe say 3, or with the lead, I'm going to be pretty confident going into the second half. I say that, but there could be a scenario
if you look at it, they've been, and it's been done in different ways, but if you look at their second half performances in these 3 playoff games have been noticeably better than their first half performances. AFC Championship notwithstanding, because once they got the lead in the third quarter, they basically just went into a super conservative, low risk offensive scheme and said, don't turn the ball over. Like, just punt the ball if you have to. Don't do anything stupid. Nobody's going to play hero ball. But yeah, once they got that lead in the third quarter, so that kind of notwithstanding, but Drake May was significantly better in the second half of the Houston game. I want to say he was 11, and then he was
he was great in the second half of the Chargers game too.
Right, and he was equally. He was probably better in the second half against LA in the wild card versus Houston in the divisional. But his second half numbers between those 2 games were noticeably better than his first half performances.
Yeah, and that's why it's obviously it's tough to say no matter what. If you're tied at half, you feel good, but unless there's a scenario where the Patriots had maybe a special teams touchdown, and other than that, it's 10-10 at half or something like that. In normal, normal scenarios, normal expectations of how games generally play out, if they're tied or even down 3 or up with the lead at halftime, I'm going to feel pretty good going into the second half, in part because we just said, Drake May seems to get more comfortable as the game goes on. And I trust the Patriots coaching staff to continue to make adjustments and take advantage of that in the second half. I just, the biggest worry for me is if they come out, and I already said this, but if they come out and they fall behind big early, and then they're having to play catch up. It's not that I think the game's over and that they can't do it, but if they're going in and they battle and it's 3-3 at the end of the first, and then 13-10 Seattle at half, I'm gonna feel in a relatively good spot where they are. If they can win the first half, and that it sounds like common sense, but if they can win the first half, I feel very confident that they'll win the second half. And so that's kind of just really the keys. And that goes into what we were talking about this, how things are going to play out in the first quarter and stuff like that, where you kind of, you don't want to give the game away in the first quarter. But if the Patriots can come out and put up points early in the game, I think they'll put themselves in a really, really good spot to kind of,
I agree,
to control the game, obviously. Yeah, and that's the biggest thing. If you could control the pace of the game and play with a lead, or even if it's tied a lot of the game, but if you're in a scenario where it's okay, you went up 7-0, then it's 7-3, then it's 10-3, and then 10-10. If you're controlling the pace where you got that head start, it's a whole different ball game in terms of how you approach things. And we saw that with the Denver game, obviously. If they didn't score those points to go up 10-7, it's a completely different game. It's a completely different game of how you handled it. And people are like, oh, they didn't do anything in the second half. Well, yeah, because that's how they had the lead and that's how they were approaching it. If the game was 7-7 or 10-7 Denver, the Patriots wouldn't have run the same offense in the second half, especially in the fourth quarter.
Okay, real quick, it's very minor, but Mike Reese just now tweeting out that running back Terrell Jennings, who cleared concussion protocol, his practice clock has expired, which means he reverts back to injured reserve, meaning that in all likelihood, one of the practice squad elevations you'll see is that Dearness Johnson is going to be the third running back behind Stevenson and Henderson, and will probably be one of the guys handling kickoff return duties.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think that they trust Johnson as a kick returner. Not that he's anything special, but that's kind of what I expected. I would have been relatively surprised if they had Jennings returning kicks, or even just as the third running back into this game. But any more thoughts on this game before we wrap it up, and how you're feeling and what your expectations are?
No, I mean, last couple things, just things that, between, reading and watching certain things, I feel that the Patriots' best chance to win this game starts on the defensive side of the ball. I don't think this Patriots team is equipped to play from behind. I know we've said that. So I think, emphasis number one is, the defensive front. They have to win the line of scrimmage there. And then, to kind of reiterate your point, they have to be neutral on the line of scrimmage on the offensive side of the ball. I have a good feeling, with Drake May, if he's not under pressure. He's not a guy that will put the ball in the other team's hands at a high rate. He only threw 8 interceptions this year. The issues predominantly have been fumbling, right? There were no turnovers and no fumbles in the AFC Championship game, but 6 fumbles in the first 2 games, and he lost 3 of them. If Will Campbell and Jared Wilson can play their best game, the right side of the offensive line has been very, very good in pass protection for the most part. Their biggest hole obviously has been with Campbell on the left side of the line. So, as long as they can, communicate and hold up against the pass rush and give May some time, I trust his ability to find the right guy in the right situation or take off and run with it, which is something we didn't really talk about. But, I think Drake May's legs are a low key under the radar X factor in this game. The Seahawks only played against 2 quarterbacks that were legitimate running threats. They played against Kyler Murray early in the season before he got hurt. The second time around they played Arizona, Brissett was the quarterback, no run threat there. And then early on before he got hurt, they played against Jaden Daniels. I don't have the numbers right in front of me, so I can't give you specific totals, but both quarterbacks ran for over 60 yards in each in those 2 games. So that's kind of twofold for me. It's a small sample size. So it's like, did they just have a couple of off days? We don't know. But then on the other side, it's, Seattle hasn't needed to prepare for a dual threat quarterback. Drake May is not the best running quarterback in the NFL. It's no secret. But he was 4th in rushing for quarterbacks this year. So he is a legitimate threat to tuck it and run it. He's been good with his legs all postseason. Thank God he can run, because if that wasn't a weapon, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about, Super Bowl stuff. So I think that's, it's an under the radar thing. I think that, hopefully Josh McDaniels can instill in May to have the freedom to tuck it and run it if he feels like he needs to help offset any potential edge rush. Their best edge rusher is Leonard Williams, who's older but still good. So, I like Drake May's decision-making process. So if they can keep a cleanish pocket and give him time to throw or decide to tuck it and run, that I think can certainly pay dividends. I think the Seahawks gave up like 9 some odd yards a rush to opposing quarterbacks. Those 2 examples, again, they didn't have to scheme against anybody else. So I guess that was the other part of the twofold, is that only playing 2 running quarterbacks, they didn't need to scheme against a ton of dual threat guys, so who knows which way that'll go. But yeah, those are my the last things I guess I'll add in before we, wrap up and give, final predictions.
Yeah. I mean, there you go. What is your final score prediction here in terms of how do you think we'll be next week? Are we going to be talking about we came close and this is what we need in the offseason, or are we going to be insufferable Patriots fans?
I do have the Patriots winning. And I think that there's going to be a key situation where the Patriots defensive line takes advantage. And whether it's, or I don't know at what point in the game, but I think there's going to be a situation where the Patriots defensive line takes advantage of the Seahawks up the middle. And I think that whether they get a key stop or force a turnover, I think that, again, whether it's early, sometime in the middle or late, will end up being a difference in this game. Again, I trust Drake May's decision-making process as long as he can keep the ball in his hands and not be susceptible to the rush. Will Campbell was much better in the Denver game against a legitimate pass rusher. He got eaten up, obviously, by Houston. He got eaten up by LA. Seattle doesn't have the same talent at edge that Denver or Houston or LA did, in my opinion. They're more of a well-rounded defense, but I don't have that fear of, oh, good God, like, how is Will Campbell going to hold up against these all-pro edge rushers? It's a quarterback-driven league. Drake May is my MVP. I think he's perfectly capable of taking over this game. I'm not saying he's going to go for 300 plus, but I look at this and go, if he can be in the 250 to 300 total yard range, throw for 225, 230, run for another 50 or 60 yards, and score a couple of touchdowns, I think that the Patriots will be in a great spot. I like the defensive matchups against Seattle. And like we've said all postseason long, the turnovers are going to be huge. Whatever team takes care of the ball the best is going to win. I trust our coaching staff. I trust our players. And, I think if we can force Darnold off his spots, not to say that he'll say that he was seeing ghosts again, but you could end up with a Darnold situation where he gives you one, forces a throw. You got Marcus Jones or Gonzo or Carlton Davis picking off a pass. I like our creativity up front. Seattle's very, very good. They're probably the most complete team not playing in Buffalo that the Patriots will have played all season. Seattle's here for a reason. But I don't think that there's been one juggernaut team in the NFL this year, which is why, I think that's why we have the matchup we have. Again, Seattle is 8th offensively, 6th defensively this year. They were number 1 in DVOA on defense. They do a lot of things really, really well. And so I feel like, at the end of the day, we'll be celebrating, we'll be smiling, and making plans for a duck boat parade down Boylston Street next week. And not to say that Seattle can't win, but I give the slight edge to the Patriots in terms of their defense being able to exploit weaknesses along the Seahawks offensive line, whereas I don't think Seattle has the guys on their defensive line to really make a drastic impact on the Patriots offensive line. And hopefully Drake May can take advantage of some lanes and run the ball, make some plays with his legs, and it'll keep that defense honest. So I got 24-20.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a pretty similar boat. I got 26-20. Under the radar MVP pick, Marcus Jones is plus 10,000 on FanDuel. I think it's definitely worth taking a swing. I mean, the dude's made some huge plays on special teams and defensively. So that's just, an outlier. But that kind of goes into what I'm kind of saying is I think that there'll be one or two big plays that I think the Patriots will just make one or two more big plays than Seattle. And that's really what it will come down to. I think it will be a really good, hard-fought game. But I trust the Patriots defense to make some big plays, and I trust a guy like Marcus Jones to potentially make a big play on special teams. So we've obviously gone around in circles of talking about the keys and stuff like that, but that's really what it comes down to for me. Is I think that they'll come in, and in the end, you'll look at this and say, third quarter, fourth quarter, whatever it may be, the Patriots made that one extra big play. Whether it's a turnover in their Seattle's own end of the field, or a big punt return that gives them a touchdown, or a big gain, whatever it is to put them in position, and they'll come out victorious. Drake May, we're kind of in a similar. I mean, if he comes out and puts up 300 total yards, I would be surprised if they don't. I would be really surprised if they don't win, because, like I said, I expect the Patriots defense to come out and play good football. So.
Yep. And then one last thing to add in is that according to Cox, Zach Cox. Nick Cattles reposted his own post that from Robert Spillane's own mouth, he is 100% confident that he's going to play Sunday. He's obviously key in the run game. I haven't seen anything from Mike Reese in the last 12 seconds. So not exactly sure what the early report is coming out of practice. But we'll see shortly, if there's any key guys on that, especially on that defense, who are not available during the media portion of practice. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, that's basically it. We're excited to be here, but obviously let's finish the job. That's kind of it on the Patriots end of things. The Red Sox went in, made a couple small moves. They got rid of Hicks. But we'll talk more about that in the coming weeks as we get closer to baseball season, and hopefully we'll be celebrating. And hopefully the Patriots will be raising the banner, raising the 7th banner.
Stairway to 7.
Yeah, there you go. And I entered that Matt Light contest, so maybe I'll be going to the Super Bowl. I'll find out tomorrow afternoon. Yeah, I don't like my chances, but who knows?
If you win, I fully expect to be the only person you call and ask to go with you.
All right, that's a lot of pressure. But anyways, yeah, I hope hopefully come September, we have a Thursday night game and the Patriots are hosting it, and they're raising that last banner. So, all right, when we're back, hopefully we're talking about a 7th Super Bowl, and we're not talking about off-season needs. So, all right, until next time, we'll raise the banner, and thank you for listening.
Go Pats.